we recently just passed 500 subscribers. Just wanted to say thank you.
Pigs! All of you! Capitalist pigs! You think you understand the cinema? You don't! You know nothing! Nothing!
It took me so long to fold that echo.
I know, I'm sorry. So it would have to smash cut.
Matthew McConaughey's got it made. He's got a sweet pad, a hot girlfriend, and banging packs.
But now, he's got a little problem.
I think you're gonna let me know that everyone in your family's a midget.
They're not midgets, Carol, they're dwarfs.
Whatever.
Starring Academy Award winner Patricia Arquette. And in the role of a lifetime, Gary Oldman.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of In the Fold. I'm Echo.
And I'm Mike.
And today, we are reviewing the 2003 indie darling,
Tiptoes. Why are we reviewing Tiptoes, Echo?
Excellent question. This movie is such a fucking disaster. It really needs to be shared. It's a painful experience, but I think ultimately rewarding. It tries so hard to be a straightforward drama and just falls flat on its face. And it also tries to work as an advocacy story of sorts for little people. I think it harms more than it helps, to be honest.
Through a re-edit, it kind of becomes a very silly, somewhat rom-com, and it fails at being both.
This movie's a fucking mess. If this review is a mess, blame the movie.
We're just trying to give you a general overview of what the movie's like and some of the problems that we've had with the movie.
Yeah, I guess we'll do a synopsis, right?
Sure.
Matthew McConaughey is a fireman instructor.
He trains firemen.
I mean, we'll get back to that. Matthew McConaughey and Kate Beckinsale are the world's hottest couple, and she finds out that she's pregnant.
I think maybe I'm pregnant.
And Matthew McConaughey has been hiding a secret from her, and that's he's a dwarf. And he comes from a family of little people. He has a twin brother that is a little person that is played by Gary Oldman, standing next to actual little person and extraordinarily talented actor Peter Dinklage.
So it's a little awkward that there was this amazing actor right there that you could have used for this part, but instead you went with someone who wasn't a little person.
This is something that he has somehow managed to hide from the girl that he ostensibly loves and wants to spend the rest of his life with. And he's worried that she is going to give birth to a dwarf baby.
Okay, so just tell me. If you and I have a kid together, is it gonna be a midget?
Carol, don't say midget, say dwarf.
Look, just answer the goddamn question, Steven.
It's possible.
This is going to be a sloppy one. So the movie opens with Gary Oldman driving an adorable
Tricycle.
It's basically, yeah, a motorized tricycle.
It's a trike.
He's traveling across country
With Peter Dinklage.
who is Maurice, a French
I am French, and I'm proud to be French.
Marxist rebel. He's got a gun. He's always angry. He's a fun character, to be honest. I think I'd rather just spend the rest of the movie with him.
I think the women's liberation movement is an excuse for every poor female pig who needed a reason not to clean up after themselves.
I just don't understand why his character has all those traits. Like, what is he trying to say?
Yeah, it's a real hat on a hat. It's too much.
Yeah.
Now, Peter Dinklage wasn't like a big name at the time.
He was in The Station Agent, right? He had done that before.
Yes.
Around the same time.
Oh, man, I totally forgot about that. So Dinklage was actually, he was in a movie in 95 where he plays an actor, and he actually has a scene very specifically about the way little people are used in movies.
Have you ever had a dream with a dwarf in it? Do you know anyone who's had a dream with a dwarf in it? No! I don't even have dreams with dwarves in them. The only place I've seen dwarves in dreams is in stupid movies like this.
Little people have kind of lost their place in Hollywood. They got kind of replaced with CGI.
Actually, little people are a group of people that I've always felt really terrible for. I mean, the way little people are employed is that they're either the punchline of a joke or they're flying monkeys.
It really sucks.
Yeah. I agree.
Does this movie explore that at all?
It explores it, but the movie's so terrible, it backfires on that intent. And I think that's a real shame, because I think that the movie's intent is pretty noble, actually. It's helping, shed some light on an issue that really doesn't get a lot of attention.
There's nothing about being little that precludes being happy or productive. Yeah. Look at us.
This movie actually has a couple of taglines, because this is the easiest. This might be the most punnable movie.
We're trying to do our best to keep it contained.
Again, the intent is not to offend. The intent is to make fun of how offensive that this movie actually is. Mm-hmm. So it has two taglines. The first one was, what was that first one?
It's only the size of your heart that counts.
Which is hilarious, because there's a point in the movie where Gary Oldman mentions little people suffer from like crushed organs and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's pretty funny to me that they would actually have a tagline like that. In fact, fun fact, the actor Hervé Villechaize, I totally forgot about Hervé Villechaize. He played, what was his name? He was in The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh,
he was
yeah.
He was Adventure Island. Deplane.
Knick Knack.
Knick Knack. Yeah, he played Knick Knack in The Man with the Golden Gun. And I don't know if you know the story about this guy.
No, I don't know the story.
He had normal organs. His organs continued to grow to normal size inside of his body, and the pain became so much that he committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
I guess it really is only the size of your heart that counts.
There's a point in The Man with the Golden Gun where Hervé Villechaize gets stuffed into a briefcase.
Hey, that's me! Ow! Oh, hey, what are you doing?
If you needed any more proof at how poorly little people are treated by movies.
I can't breathe! Ow! You'll be sorry!
The second tagline for the film is, it's the little things in life that matter.
The taglines write themselves, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody in the comments could come up with many taglines for this movie.
I love that. Yes! I got nothing to add to that. It's just I really like that. Patricia Arquette plays Lucy the prostitute. She gets kicked off a bus in the middle of nowhere, where she's certain to die.
And she just sits on the side of the road too. She doesn't even try to walk anywhere. Right?
Yeah, she's just hanging out, and then Gary Oldman and Dinklage drive by.
Well, Dinklage just tells her, yeah, hop on, let's go, follow me, we're going somewhere. And then we establish Kate Beckinsale and Matthew McConaughey's relationship.
They got a sweet place.
Yeah, it's a very nice looking loft.
She is a painter, and she's terrible.
She paints over already finished murals.
Right from the get-go, she offers to blow him.
Yep.
It's a little awkward.
Well, he's Matthew McConaughey.
Right. No, I agreed.
And in this movie, he is just like a male
super
Adonis.
Fun. That is something we have to talk about, the sheer gorgeousness of Matthew McConaughey. And Kate Beckinsale, for that matter. You're talking about... this is what I love. They did not get two average-looking people to star in this movie.
They got two pinnacles of human beauty.
Yeah, there's even one point where there's a shot of Matthew McConaughey. He's disrobing to go to bed, and he is gorgeously side-lit, abs akimbo, just fucking smoking hot, you know? And if the intent of the movie is to kind of advocate for little people, and here you have this impossibly tall, muscular protagonist. It just makes the message kind of ring hollow.
Well, I think it's supposed to talk about some sort of juxtaposition between the two brothers. One is a little person who's all...
He had to have a hump, and he had like a funny bit stuck to his head, and he had his shoes on his knees. And
Kate Beckinsale doesn't expect Matthew McConaughey's family to be little people because he looks so good.
Yeah, like if you haven't met his family yet, you'd expect like, oh, this is probably some sort of like Nazi Ubermensch experiment. They're all gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So then they go to a little people advocacy convention.
Yeah.
David Alan Grier is the MC for this little person advocacy meeting.
In North America alone.
And I only bring it up because he comes back in a very important way.
And Matthew McConaughey meets up with his family, and
he really stands out, huh? And it's so funny too because you have the entire little person community of Hollywood in this movie. Every little person that you've ever seen on screen is in this movie. And I hate to say it, but boy, the talent runs out pretty quickly. They stink. I really don't want to be mean. The acting is terrible. Now, to be fair, the movie's terrible too.
Hey, the asshole is the strongest muscle in the human body.
Well, I think we should talk like a little context about the movie too, because the movie, according to Peter Dinklage, started out being like a very hard drama that was really good and well put together and had a lot to say, but through a re-edit into trying to make it into some sort of rom-com, really lost all of the themes of what they were going for originally.
Boy, I have a hard time imagining that. I cannot imagine how this thing could have been salvaged to not really where it's good, but poignant, as he described it. I just can't imagine that.
I let him fuck me twice, okay? I felt sorry for him. His whole family was evicted from their apartment in the Gaza Strip.
What if this is actually the better cut?
I see. I trust Peter Dinklage's opinion, though. You know, like
yeah, he's a smart guy.
Yeah, I trust that he knows what he's talking about.
I wonder if Dinklage could advocate for a better cut of this movie.
The Dinklage cut.
The Dinklage cut.
You fat Sally! You fucking whore! You've lost! Not enough, Sally! No, you get out of my way now!
Let's talk about jobs in this movie.
So, tell me, Carol, what is it exactly you do for a living?
I'm a painter.
So,
the lives of these people are like very glossed over.
Matthew McConaughey is a firefighter instructor, which you wouldn't know up until a scene where they're literally just in a field with absolutely no context, and he is training firemen. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Kate Beckinsale just paints. She's not really doing anything.
You mean you make money at that?
Yeah, it pays the bills.
And then Gary Oldman's character.
Yeah, Gary Oldman writes for Harper's.
He writes for Harper's.
About the Republicans.
I saw your article in Harper's about the Republicans becoming very successful.
And that's about as far as the movie's going to get into that. And then Dinklage's character, I guess his job is Marxist separatist.
You people don't understand. It's that political power. It grows out of the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have anything going on.
No. And Lucy's job is prostitute.
You think I'm a prostitute?
I mean, she says I'm not a prostitute, but I feel like the idea is that she's a prostitute. Okay, so there's a scene where Matthew McConaughey is at work. No. We need to start with the bedroom scene. This is maybe one of 3 scenes set in the bed. And each one of these scenes is like an emotional roller coaster where we go through literally every fucking they go from being angry at each other to loving each other to being supportive of each other to hating each other's guts in the span of seconds.
Yeah,
seconds.
The conversation just goes in wildly different directions every 5 seconds. They really move through what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that they start the scene, they're all lovey-dovey, and by the end of the scene, they're just like, they hate each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you hate Matthew McConaughey? Did you see him at the start of the scene walk up to that bed?
Oh. I'm straight as an arrow, but what do you do when you're faced with that? You just start sucking. You know? But yeah, so it's at this point where she announces that she's pregnant. So that's that scene. It cuts to the next day, where Matthew McConaughey is at work.
Yes, he's training firefighters.
What that has to do with his personality, I have no idea. It was not previously established in any capacity. We are literally just out in a field, no context, no anything. When we first see Matthew McConaughey in the beginning of the film, he's just walking in a suit. You figure he's just a businessman. That's what I like to call it. Whenever you see a movie where a guy is just in a suit and he's just like, oh, I got to handle the Johnson account. He's a busyness man. So you have no context for the scene where he shows up. Oh, and he's a firefighter, but he's actually training firefighters.
He's a fireman.
The second half of this scene is Kate Beckinsale just shows up.
Just walks.
Literally materializes out of thin air.
And she's wearing her pajamas, I think.
She's in her pajamas. And he's like, hold on a sec, fellas. And then he goes and has like
an intense
15-minute conversation where there's a point halfway through this conversation where you're like, the camera could just like literally move a couple of feet, pan over to the fireman just sitting there. Is it just going to be on the test? Oh man. So she's there to confront Matthew McConaughey about
how.
Oh man,
we missed the scene.
Yes, we did. It's because it was a little scene.
All right, it's a very small scene where Gary Oldman shows up to Kate Beckinsale, and Matthew McConaughey's apartment.
Yeah,
Matthew McConaughey isn't there.
Their door though. It's a garage.
It's a garage door.
They live in a firehouse.
Yeah, and he just says like, "I'm his brother."
Shots from his point of view are filmed in hilarious ground level low angles. It's not just that she's taller than him; she is looming over him.
Gigantic, yeah.
I'm shooting from down up on everybody, like this.
You know, beautiful pose.
The 5-year plan.
And
looks like fucking Sauron.
And I mean, if Gary Oldman had just like walked up to me and was like, "Hi, I'm your Adonis of a husband's twin brother."
Yeah.
You're like, wait a second, let me see your driver's license here. What's your name?
You would just be like,
but she invites him back inside.
Yeah. How harmful could he be? What's he gonna do?
Right. So Kate Beckinsale confronts Matthew McConaughey about the fact that he never told her that his family is little people, or in her own words, midgets.
Yeah, and he gets mad, and his hair. Jesus. Because I'm so excited, and it's at that point where we get another glimpse of his temper, and this darkness befalls him. It's like, they're not called midgets, Carol. Once the main issue of the movie is established, I'd say like the middle 30 to 40 minutes of the movie is just scenes that just land with a terrible thud. None of the jokes work. Everything is just off. There's a terrible, complete lack of chemistry among the actors.
There's no real reason for why people are saying the things or why you're learning the information you are. The cinematography is just like by the numbers. It looked, it could have been a TV show, some sort of soap opera, honestly.
So at the heart of this movie is actually a fairly interesting dramatic conflict, But here's a guy who might have a little person for a kid, and he's worried about, the pain that's going to bring.
But it's also taken us 2 watches of this movie, and I don't know how long into this discussion we are, but this is like the first time I feel like we're really talking about, like getting to some sort of deeper philosophical like meaning to this movie that's just terrible.
Yeah. No, I think there's a drama worth making a movie around, but holy cow, did they fuck it up.
Yeah. It is a mess.
Jerry, I think you might be a little too old for me.
Stripper midget.
Yeah, do you remember her?
Yeah, oh, I do. Because that's why I wanted to bring up David Alan Grier earlier, because they go to a party, and it's, again, another fucking awesome place. All these little people are around. Gary Oldman is there, just being killjoy as usual. And the cherry on top of that scene is that he finds that his love interest is in a pool house, banging David Alan Grier.
What's up, man? That's it. I'm done with you, Sally.
And there's no walls to that room.
Yeah, it's in a windowed pool house.
So everybody saw it.
So they're on full display.
Who does that? Who does that? Gary Oldman was right there.
Yeah, it's like, geez. That whole scene is my browser history.
The setup to that scene, do you remember that? The movie's trying to do a lot of different things, and it tries to set up in a very short amount of time that that Rolf might be seducing Kate Beckinsale, and that Kate Beckinsale is like playing Rolf against Matthew McConaughey, and it's done in literally one scene, I think, and then totally dropped because Kate Beckinsale calls Matthew McConaughey, and it's in this like very close up on her lips.
Hi, Steven.
And it's like,
yeah.
Hey, what are you doing? You want to go to a party? I'm going with Rolf, your brother.
Bobby invited me to a party at Jerry Robin Jr.'s house tomorrow night. I was kind of hoping we could all go together.
And he's like, what? You're going with Rolf? Why? I don't understand. And he's like, come on, come to the party. He's like,
Okay.
all right, I'm going to go. And then he throws his phone, I think. And then the other firewoman instructor that he works with comes out of the woods. And then he's like, you want to go to a party? As if to be like, oh, I'm going to make Kate Beckinsale jealous.
Yeah, she's being introduced as like just another threat to the relationship.
Right. And then he shows up to the party and everything's fine.
There's sure a lot of midgets around here.
Actually, it's little people.
That whole plot line gets dropped immediately at the start of the next scene.
Is that Jerry Robin Jr. sitting over there?
It sure is. I'm gonna get an autograph.
So the parents meet.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. LaFarge.
And it is played with some heavy tension, you know? Like you are very worried about how Kate's family is going to react. And instantaneously, the mother, the father is just like kind of like, oh, taken by surprise, but he seems to mean well.
Let me have a 7 and 7. Sylvia? She'll have a vodka tonic.
And the mother's like, you need to fucking exterminate these people. And so the dinner is very tense. There is a point where Kate's father tells a fart limerick.
He'd fart anything, from God Save the King to Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. He'd fart a gavotte for a starter, and then a Handelian cantata. Boost up his ass, blast, box, B minor mass, and then counterpoint. La Traviata.
That kind of fits into the sort of rom-com style, I think, that the movie was re-edited into going for. And it's sort of like a Meet the Fockers type situation with little people. So they have dinner, and throughout the dinner, you're very worried that the mother is going to like say something embarrassing, or
she looks like she's going to come at them with like a lit cigarette. It's like, I'll get him.
And then she starts to make like an announcement, like, we have a problem with something that's going on, and we need to talk about it before anything goes further.
Is everything all right, Sylvia?
Oh, yes, I was just thinking is all.
Sylvia, don't think.
And you're like, what are you going to talk about, Mom? What could it possibly be? What could possibly be wrong with this situation?
I think that there's something that we need to bring up.
What's the thing that she's worried about? What's the payoff for that tension?
I certainly wouldn't want anyone to think that we're prejudiced people.
Daddy.
Gotta be a Jewish wedding.
Because there's an uncle that is dying and he's Jewish, and so it wants it to be a Jewish wedding.
I got no problem with a Jewish wedding.
It is just so arbitrary and dumb and awful, and everybody's like, oh, and it's so fucking terrible.
Yeah.
So they get married. She goes from flat as a board
to pregnant
to full on,
and they get married, and that's where you think the movie should probably end.
Where are they getting married though?
They get married in the same park.
In the park, there's nothing. It's just chairs. This is no formal reception or anything. Oh, they had a little arch, the little proscenium.
It kind of looks like a graveyard, honestly.
It feels like a graveyard. Dinklage and Lucy they're picnicking nearby. They're not even at the wedding. They're just hanging. They're there to heckle the wedding.
They're not actually there. It's a different day. It was probably scheduled like a month after they actually shot that scene. Mm-hmm. They don't show them in the same space.
And she runs off, and it's literally like one shot, 2 shots maximum. That's all we get for the wedding.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the hospital room, I believe, where she's having the kid, right?
The hospital that she has the kid in, though, is completely ran by little people.
It's a little people hospital, which I don't think
I don't think that really exists.
I don't think that's a thing.
You think it's easier to get the baby out with smaller
With
fingers?
littler hands. And then right off the bat, Matthew McConaughey flies into a rage.
It's gonna be a big commitment.
Yeah, but we're up for that, aren't we, Steven?
God damn it!
He is mad at the baby for being born a little person. At no point is he ever supportive of this child.
Look what I need. I need chromosomes.
Oh, honey, you're making this so much harder than it needs to be. Do you know that?
And he does nothing but act like a crazy lunatic around this child.
Yeah,
and because of this
screaming
child.
and yelling, yeah.
Yeah.
Why is he hurting? Because he's a dwarf. Carol, he's a dwarf.
He's a baby and you're scaring him.
Baby, and he's a dwarf, and that ain't why he's crying. He's crying because he hurt.
Fuck
His
you,
inside
Steven.
can't get outside.
Fuck you.
One time, say the goddamn word. He's a dwarf. I'm a dwarf.
Holy shit. That scene is amazing. All the sympathy that is supposed to be built up for him, and not that there was much.
Well, I think it was more so understanding. All the understanding of his position kind of goes out the window.
Not really, yeah.
And once he starts, being an asshole.
Right. So the next scene,
they bring the baby home.
Yeah.
It's a very fake baby, and he's crying. That baby
and a very
is crying.
child-unfriendly home, by the way. There's a spiral staircase. There's nothing fun for the kid. It's just this big warehouse space. This child's gonna die.
It's gonna get stuck in a paint bucket.
It's gonna drown in a paint bucket.
But this relationship, his hot temper, leads Kate Beckinsale to realizing that she shouldn't really be around Matthew McConaughey anymore.
Runs off to a cabin that Gary Oldman has
with Peter Dinklage.
And Lucy, and they're just at a cabin.
Hey, when you drink, does he get drunk too?
I'm not drunk. Well, maybe a little bit.
Matthew McConaughey shows up
makes
to try and fix the relationship, I think.
Makes the most half-hearted attempt to restore his relationship with Kate Beckinsale. But he doesn't care about the baby, and he makes it abundantly clear. And he goes, "I love you, Carol." And she goes, "Yeah, but do you love your son?" And he's like, "Well, no."
What goes on between a parent and a child? That's what's really important. Vincent's got to come first.
And he's out of there. It seems like that's going to be resolved in some fashion.
It's assuming that maybe, Matthew McConaughey sometime in the future might come to some sort of self-acceptance and might at some point have the ability to be a father.
Yeah.
And Gary Oldman seems pretty accommodating.
Yeah, he's a very nurturing guy.
Yeah, so nurturing that he steals the baby.
Basically steals the baby, yeah. To take care of it. Like, his intentions are pure, but she wakes up.
She's like, "Where's my baby?
Where's that baby?" And it's such a weird, whoa, we are setting up some tension here for a scene that's not happening.
And then she just goes downstairs and, "Aw, Gary Oldman has my baby."
Yeah. She goes, "You can kiss me if you want to."
Does she really say that?
That is the last line of the movie. And she kisses him. And he kisses her, rather. And then credits. It ends so fantastically abrupt. It's something to behold, man. It is crazy. I have to talk about, while I'm thinking about this, I have to talk about the font of the credits. This is something that bothered me. Like, every word in the credits had one letter that was big. And it's like, oh, look at isn't that cute what they're doing? But shouldn't it be a little smaller, actually?
All right, so since we finally got through this terrible movie, I think we need to go back now and talk about how this thing got started, how it got made.
Yes, we do. This turbulent production. I'm so excited.
What's that, Matt?
Heart medication.
What's wrong with your heart?
It's got a big pork chop in it.
So, Mike, you actually have seen a wealth of behind-the-scenes footage for this movie, which I can't believe exists in such a bounty.
What do you think? Let's do it again. More. Get more when she's down on her, yeah.
I have subjected myself to countless minutes of behind-the-scenes footage in which Gary Oldman meticulously is trying to figure out, the best way to hold himself and his finger in his hands to really, he's really doing the research, in this role. And then you go to the set and everyone is just like, oh my God, what is this movie?
Yeah.
It's very kind of paparazzi kind of footage. Like there's lots of just zoom-ins of like Kate Beckinsale's ass and stuff. It's kind of weird.
But you've got very nice breasts.
It's one of the best behind-the-scenes stories I think I've heard. The director of the film is also the writer of the film, but if you look at the credits, it's under a pseudonym.
Which is hilariously Billy Wiener.
Say, give me your wiener. It's very American.
I love that he landed on that.
The director's name is Matthew Bright.
I don't like Democrat midgets. They're too politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
He originally wrote the film when he was 18. Started out as a comedy about just little people fucking.
Hey, Steve, give me your wiener. What do you think? I like it.
Eventually, he repurposed it into a more dramatic film.
Yeah.
We don't really know because we haven't seen the original script.
Tough to say, yeah.
Why he has a pseudonym is a great story I think we should tell. So
where do we start from the beginning?
I think we should talk about the producers of the film.
Okay.
The producers are the same people who are the producers of the TV show Cops.
Apparently, they were the primary source of funding. In order to get big-name actors onto this project, like Kate Beckinsale and Matthew McConaughey, they were only able to pay them scale.
The minimum of what SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, will let you pay for an actor.
Look, someone calls up and goes, Kate, Matthew McConaughey, Gary Oldman's playing a little person, and everyone else in the movie is a little person, and the director directed Freeway. You go, okay. I want to have that experience.
Kate Beckinsale signed on to the project saying that as long as I get to wear my lucky hat.
I think you could have let me know that everyone in your family's a midget.
So on the first day of filming, Kate Beckinsale shows up with her lucky hat, and the producers get the footage, and they're like, what's up with this hat? Why is this hat in this movie? Get this hat off of Kate Beckinsale. And the director says, we can't. We have to leave the hat in. It's the part of why we're not paying her millions of dollars to do this movie. The producers from Cops, they decide that we're pulling some of our funding. We're not spending millions of dollars on this movie. We're going to give you like whatever you need to make it. So from then on, the production of the movie is just a catastrophe. Like the look of it is terrible. There's not enough money to get locations, so they're shooting this like scenes in like the same places. By the time that the movie was finished and they showed the first cut to the producers, and the producers immediately fired the director, Matthew Bright. They didn't like what he had done, and they recut the movie. The movie premieres at Sundance. So Gary Oldman buys the director of the film a ticket to get to Sundance so that he can do a Q&A afterward. Because Gary Oldman knew that the director was just going to shit all over the movie and what happened and the producers. The producers got super upset and they pulled him off the stage, like immediately.
Even after the producers pulled their funding, they were still on set and were something of a terror to the crew, making people cry, just absolute monsters to these people. And the set was a nightmare because of them.
I'm a motherfucker. I'm a dick too. Yeah? I'm a fuckwad. I'm a fucking fart.
You want to talk about some of the glorious visual effects work in this movie?
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. Very low budget. Right. There was no CGI. There was shoes on the knees. Right? Couch with a hole in it and little legs. It was super low budget.
In order to make Gary Oldman look like he was a little person, you know, he shot the film essentially on his knees. So the camera is on him, from the torso up primarily.
And there's lots of perfectly placed things in the foreground, so you don't get to see his feet.
It's the Austin Powers bit.
Yeah. They did not try to do any of like the fun camera tricks that like Lord of the Rings does to try to make people
force
like, look
perspective.
Smaller. Yeah, force perspective. There's things you can do to like to make that work.
Like cast an actual little person. That probably makes things a lot easier.
But you said yourself, the talent kind of runs out real quick.
Yeah.
And that's why Peter Dinklage is like, it's Gary Oldman, he can do it all. It's Gary Oldman.
I think you swap them out. You get Dinklage to play the little person, and you get Gary Oldman to play Maurice, the rebellious French separatist little person.
Tiptoes.
Would you recommend this film?
I would recommend this film. It does start to drag at certain parts. The first time I watched it, I think I fell asleep a couple times.
Yeah.
But I would recommend it. I think it's a very fun, interesting, just weird movie.
Yeah.
Very weird. It's one of those movies that once you watch, you did need to like figure out, how it got made. Who thought this was a good idea.
Yeah.
So I totally recommend it for sure.
I have to recommend it as well. I mean, there are long stretches of this movie where it just drags, and there are so many scenes that just fall flat on their face. But this movie is uproariously bad, and it really has to be seen to be believed. I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it strongly.
It'd be really interesting if we could see what the original version of the movie would have been like.
The director of Drive and A Place Beyond the Pines, Nicholas Refn, has mentioned in passing that he's a huge fan of the movie Tiptoes. Upon hearing that, Matthew Bright sent him a copy of his original cut.
Wow.
So there is, in fact, an original cut out there somewhere. And the guy that directed Drive
should send it to us.
Mr. Refn, if you're out there and you're a fan of movies and the exhaustive analysis of them from film students, send us a copy of the original cut of Tiptoes, or we transfer,
Hi, Mike here from Rabbit Hole TV, here with our mascot Pumpkin. Thanks for watching In the Fold. If you like what you saw, please subscribe for more. And if you really like what you saw, you can check out our Patreon where you can see behind the scenes photos and videos. Right, Pumpkin? She says subscribe.